Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome members of council, staff, and members of the public to our May 13th council meeting and call this meeting to order. I'd like to call upon Mrs. Pearson for the roll call, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Hyatt.
Present.
Councillor O'Hara.
Present.
Councillor Patel.
Present.
Councillor Welsh.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Field.
Present.
Mayor Loosely.
Present.
We have a quorum, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. And I'd like to ask you at this time for the land acknowledgement, please.
Thank you. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land of the Chippewa, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. The town of Petrolia is located on the lands associated with the Huron Tract Treaty number 29 of 1827. We express gratitude for the land where we live, work, and play, and we are committed to working respectfully with the land and the Indigenous peoples who have called this land home.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. And at this time, I'd like to request that council can declare a conflict of interest now or at the appropriate time and complete the necessary paperwork. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. We have a motion before you to adopt the agenda. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Hyatt, seconded by Councillor Clark.
And Your Worship, we do have 2 items of business in relation to the agenda tonight.
You want to add them now? or-
They're actually reductions, Your Worship. So one
Okay.
is item 7A. We'll have a request to be deferred. That is due to a technical error. And those are the minutes of April the 8th. And that item 12B will be removed to the agenda as Mr. Jeff Dewhurst provides his regrets this evening and will be attending the next regular meeting of council.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Pearson. But we'll move on to the actual April 8th. I'd like to request then that council defer those minutes due to a technical issue. So that I'll need a mover and a second to defer those minutes. Moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Patel. Any discussion regarding that? All those in favor of deferring that? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. That'll move us on to the next one, which is the council education session on April the 8th. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
That is for the council of the town of Petrolia to adopt as circulated minutes of the education session held on April the 8th, 2024.
Any errors or omissions? Discussion? All those in favor of approving those minutes? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll take us on to the minutes of the public information meeting held on April the 8th. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put that motion on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Patel, seconded by Councillor Clark. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
That is for the council of the town of Petrolia to adopt as circulated minutes of a public information meeting held on April 8th, 2024.
Any discussion regarding those minutes? All those in favor of approving those minutes? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll move us on to the moment of reflection. And before we stand, I would like to ask council and staff to use tonight's moment of reflection to remember Councillor Don Welton, who passed away on May the 9th. Don served on council from 2018 to 2022, and for many years prior represented council as an appointed member of the Committee of Adjustment and Property Standards. Don left Petrolia for the better, and for that we will always be thankful. Please join me in remembering past Councillor Don Welton. I'd like to ask everyone to please stand for a moment of reflection, please. Thank you. Please be seated. That'll move us to the round table. And starting tonight, we have Councillor Hyatt first, please.
Thank you. Just one thing to share is we see more and more activity around planning. I took a couple training courses in planning, so foundations in planning and advanced land use planning training courses. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Councillor Patel.
Just a notice of all the buzz in the air and the activities and the Mother's Day launches and Tart Fest and everything that's happening. It's really exciting to see the weather cooperate as we unfold our 150 in great celebration.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. That's all good news. Councillor O'Hara.
Yes, I attended the announcement for Blue Water Health on Friday along with our mayor. And I'm sure he'll bring you up with a little more information on that. And then we cut the ribbon on our almost complete band shell on Saturday. And the weather didn't really permit, but we got it done anyway. Had a nice turnout for all those events. And it looks like the craft show was really successful on Saturday.
Great. Thank you, Councillor O'Hara. Councillor Welsh.
Just that another riveting meeting of the Waste Management Citizen Liaison Committee took place last week, and I'll have a report as soon as the draft minutes are forwarded.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Field.
Yeah, through you. I attended McHappy Day as a representative from Petrolia. Definitely a place that I always wanted to work. Definitely don't think it would be a good idea for me to be there. But just represented that from the town. So.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Field, and it was certainly very successful for us in the county. So bear with me, I have a few items. I took part in a Zoom meeting of County Council on Wednesday, April 17th, and as usual, we'll continue to keep Petrolia Council informed. I've only got one wing, so it was a little harder to move around. I attended the new police members to be sworn in on Wednesday, April 17th at the OPP Police Headquarters. The training was very good and worthwhile. I welcomed everyone to the Town of Petrolia for the unveiling of the artwork to be left at the CEE Hospital that was held in the designated boardroom at CEE on Friday, April 19th. The artist is Mr. John Williams, Ojibwe artist, Bear Clan, Awan First Nations, and it was a beautiful ceremony. I attended the Sarnia Lambton Ontario Health Team's news release at the Wyoming Health and Wellness Center on Friday, April the 19th. The Ministry of Health is allocating $910,000 in funding to the Rapids Family Health Team, Central Lambton Family Health Team, and North Lambton Community Health Center to continue operations of urban and rural access to care centers in Sarnia Lambton, and this is great news for us. I attended a meeting of the Lambton Group OPP Detachment Board on Monday, April 29th at the OPP Detachment Building on Heritage Road, and I will continue to keep council informed. I also attended a meeting of County Council on Wednesday, May the 1st, that included breakfast with MPP Bob Bailey, and again, we'll keep council informed. Congratulations to all the staff, Deputy Mayor Field, Councillor Clark, Councillor Welsh, and all the volunteers that took part in the annual Petrolia Clean Sweep held on Saturday, May the 4th to help keep the town clean and in great shape. I attended the CEE Emergency Redevelopment announcement on Friday, May 10th. This is exciting news, especially as we proudly celebrate 150 years. Our town and residents have worked hard to protect our community hospital, and this milestone is another assurance of the bright future for our hospital. Councillor Ross O'Hara and Mr. Rick Charlebois, CAO Treasurer, were in attendance. Paula Ream Zimmer, President and CEO of Blue Water Health, MPP Bob Bailey, and Mr. Mark Brott, CEE Foundation, and I spoke on behalf of council and staff and how pleased we were to make this announcement. And just to add a little further, we're looking at somewhere between $18 to $20 million. We have to raise 10%, and we already have $700,000, which is great news. I took part in the band shell ribbon cutting on May the 11th. That was a great success. Congratulations to all the staff and those involved in the ribbon cutting ceremony. Councillors O'Hara, Hyatt, Rick Charlebois, CEO Treasurer were also in attendance. And also at that time, I'm pleased to state that the Lions Club gave us a check for $10,000. I would like to acknowledge and thank Mr. Blaise Weirdeharm of Blaise Works for the two beautiful murals completed on the King Street side of Red Apple and the back side of the cottage in the alley. Special thanks to the Lambton Economic Partnership staff and all those involved with the project, with more to come. And that's all that I have. That'll move us on to correspondence. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the correspondence A to G, please. Moved by Councillor O'Hara, seconded by Deputy Mayor Field. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to receive and file correspondence items 10A through G.
Any questions from council? Councillor Welsh.
Could we possibly remove B and do it separately?
Which one?
10B.
Did we already deal with that?
I believe, is that the Ontario Heritage Trust?
No. Town of Orangeville.
Supporting the Ontario Heritage Trust?
Thought we already dealt with that.
We were one of the, if that's the same one, we were one of the original
This one is
supporters when that was circulated by the province.
to extend it.
Yes, we were one of the original
Okay,
supporters.
as long as we've done it already.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from council?
I did.
Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving that? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. That brings us to delegations and presentations. We have the Petrolia Youth Advisory Committee Chair, Miss Ava Horwood.
Your worship, we actually have 11A and B. We have two items that require action under correspondence.
Okay, I apologize. We'll move back. Sorry, I did miss that. 11A, we have a request from the Petrolia Legion regarding the cenotaph. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion. Moved by Deputy Mayor Field, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
Actually, worship, that the motion would be to support unless there's something alternate.
Okay. I think we were to prepare a base for the actual stones. So, all right, any questions from council? I think this is a great project. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. And we also have a request from the LCCVI Prom Committee. I'll ask for a mover and a second to put that motion on the floor for discussion. And that's for their request for some money, moved by Councillor Welsh, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. I'll just ask the clerk to clarify what we're approving here.
So they've actually asked for several asks within their request, financial support, as well as any time support and supervision support.
All right. Any questions from council? Councillor Welsh.
I don't have any questions. I'm just going to provide some additional information because I did ask them some questions for when we consider this. I asked them about security and liability. They're currently looking for, they're currently in the process of receiving liability insurance for the event, and they are hiring security and having chaperones. If that, and an in and out policy, if that helps anyone along with their information.
Thank you, Councillor Welsh. That's important to know. I think the concern I have only is setting a priority if we start funding different proms. But anyway, I'll open it up for council. Any further discussion? Deputy Mayor Field.
Through you, would this be something that, you know, I know it might not be applicable this year, but could they apply for one of the community grants to help support it? I think it's going to be an ongoing, the school's not going to let them have prom there. So is that maybe something that we could let them know that they could apply for in the future?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Field. You're correct. They could do that. They could apply like other organizations and apply at the appropriate time for that for council's consideration. Councillor O'Hara.
Yeah, through you, your worship, how much financial support are they asking for?
There's no set amount that I'm aware of. They said anything would help.
Well, I'm in agreement with, I think, Councillor Field that, you know, if we start supporting one thing, where does it end? You can guarantee that every meeting we come to, somebody will need money.
Well, if that's council's wishes, we could probably have a motion to receive and file it if that's your wishes.
I'll move
That we receive and file. I'll need a seconder for that.
I'll second it with the note that I am going to donate personally to this.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Councillor Wells. So there's a motion on the floor that the request be received and filed. But I'd also like to maybe have it so we at least inform them that they're entitled to apply for a grant at the appropriate time. All right, any other discussion? Councillor Patel.
Through you, I believe it's been a number of years since they've had a prom for one reason or not. So any guidance we could have to put this back on the docket to have an annual event that was a little more streamlined would I think would be important to support.
Thank you. Any other discussion from council? So we have a motion to receive and file. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries.
Your worship, there was a note onto that as well to advise them of the annual grant process. Is that still okay for the motion?
Yes, is that okay with the mover and seconder? Yes, thank you. All right. Sorry, now that we'll move on and to where I'd like to ask the Youth Advisory Committee Chair, Miss Ava Horwood, and is Krista Monroe here? Or just, okay. Please come forward, Ava. Sorry about that. We kind of rushed you a little bit. I guess, please, you should probably please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Ava Horwood, and I live at 557 Country View Drive, Petrolia, Ontario.
Go ahead.
Okay, before I begin, I just want to thank you all for having me tonight. Before I talk about the Youth Advisory Committee, I'm not here to speak on this, but I'm involved with the prom, and I just want to make sure that council is aware that this is not affiliated with LCCVI in any way. The school does not host prom anymore, so this is a student and parent organized event. Just making sure that everybody's aware of that, so the school is not involved with this.
So noted. Thank you.
Okay, so I have the privilege of being the co-chair for the Petrolia Youth Advisory Committee. This role I take very seriously and I'm very privileged of having. So in 2023, in October, we had our first event, which is the Youth Engagement Summit. On our first meeting in June of 2023, this idea was brought to our attention by Councillor Patel. And then from that point, we sent out a survey to students. It could not go through the schools, but just to students, friends of the Youth Advisory Committee, youth members to circulate. And we got about 75 responses from the youth about what they might like to see at the Youth Engagement Summit. So from there, we started planning. So this event was for ages 12 to 18. And we started planning to have vendors at the event, which consisted of the Arts Den, OPP, the community refrigerator. I myself had an event, a booth there, talking about my involvement within the Town of Petrolia as the co-chair of the Youth Advisory Committee, as well as the Petrolia and Annaskillen Fair Ambassador, and some of the programs that I've been in that information that could be useful for the youth that were attending. We also had three guest speakers. Two were Nolan Patchett and Lena Bourne, I believe, and they spoke about Hobie, which is a leadership event that happens yearly. And it was great information. And we also had two more guest speakers. I believe it was Scott Menzies and Mike Newts that were there. And they spoke about mental health, which is, again, very important topics that our youth should be exposed to. We were extremely fortunate by the amount of the support that we received as a committee. Of course, the community group, so the Optimist donated 2 guest speakers. The Rotary donated drawstring bags. The Lions Club of Petrolia donated a lunch, and the YMCA, we were able to utilize their venue. And of course, we can't forget about the Town of Petrolia for allowing the committee and this event to be approved. So then again, after this, the plan was in motion and advertising began in about August of 2023. And it was getting close to the event, but again, this was our first event and much was learned from it. So we had posters. 2 of the adult members of the Youth Advisory Committee were able to stand outside of local businesses in Petrolia to kind of hand out flyers and gain attention for this event and promote it more. I personally had an interview with Dave Burrows, so he is the host of the show. Most people watch it on Facebook. He's fantastic. So he interviewed me for that and just to gain more attention through the media as well. He was also the MC of the event, so another great attribute to this Youth Engagement Summit. Yeah, so we had about 48 tickets sold, I believe, but only 44 youth attended. This was a lower number than we were expecting, but again, this is our first event and it's much can be improved. And the more times you do an event, the more people talk about it and that information gets out into the town. Overall, my personal experience, I thought this was a really well done first event. There was some hiccups along the way for sure, but like that's expected in most events. But I personally, since I have a connection with the youth that attended, most of my student council members at LCCVI attended and they loved it. And they were just really surprised about the information they gained from the speakers, but also the vendors as well, and how many opportunities they learned about. So that was very rewarding to hear. And then we had them fill out kind of like a ballot at the end of the day, kind of speaking about what they learned and what they would like to see in Petrolia as well. And then we had a surprise closing. I was surprised by this, but again, Councillor Patel created a video with some of the really remarkable people in Petrolia. I know two were, I believe, Marissa and Matt Mueller, who are just very role models for me personally. So it was really nice for them to share their insights and give some motivation to the youth in Petrolia. So again, I think this was a really well done first event. Again, there's much to improve on and much we've learned, and it will only go up from here. So yes. Next, I will speak about the Petrolia Youth Talent Showcase.
Just before you start, I just wondered if does council have any questions
Sure.
regarding the actual Youth Engagement Summit report before she moves on to the next? Okay, seeing none, carry on. Thank you.
So the next event that we did was the Petrolia Youth Talent Showcase. So this was my initial idea that I brought forth to the Petrolia Youth Advisory Committee because we have this beautiful theater in Petrolia, and I felt that it would be beneficial to bring some of the really incredible musicians, singers, and dancers that we have in Petrolia that are youth to be able to showcase their talent on this amazing stage that we have. So this was formally approved November 21st, I believe, of 2023 from the Youth Advisory Committee. And from that, a subcommittee was made, which consisted of members from the Youth Advisory Committee, but a few youth that were not on the Youth Advisory Committee as well. So we're expanding our doors and including as many voices as we can. And then the tickets went on sale, I think it was December 22nd of 2023. And then, of course, our event was March 1st of 2024. So, and then we use a different amount of marketing strategies. Of course, we posted on social media as much as we could. We also had an ad in the Petrolia Independent newspaper. I again had an interview with David Burrows to streamline this across various social media resources. And the subcommittee actually was able to attend the grocery store, Heidi's Independent, 3 times. So we had kind of like a poster and a display kind of at that end table as you're walking out of this grocery store. And then again, we handed out flyers that we printed off and we actually got people interested. And I know people that didn't know us personally and they walked by and they grabbed that flyer, actually bought tickets to attend the show. So that was really nice. And we also printed the same small flyers and put them across town on the small businesses, kind of right by the cash register, so people can just take them. And it had all the information about where to buy tickets, what was happening. And then we had larger posters posted as well in the stores as well. Then, so I believe we sold around 250 tickets, including complimentary tickets. So a good audience for our first show. And this event was consisted of really incredible musicians, singers, and dancers from Petrolia. So we had about 40 performers in total in an hour show. So we had individual musicians. We had a pianist, a flautist, violinists, singers, and then the 2 of our home dance studios, Steppin' Up Dance Company and Elite Star Dance Academy. They had 4 routines in total. It was jazz, ballet, and tap that they had. And then to close the show, we had the Lambton Youth Choir. So it was just a really professional event. It was short. It was only about an hour, but the quality was there. And it was really, and the audience members really enjoyed it as well. And we had our performers dress more professional. So we were able to actually use some of the gowns that the VPP has. And so it was just really amazing. And then, of course, Chelsea and Matt, who did the lighting and sound for the show, were just phenomenal to work with, and they did an excellent job as well. And then again, the support was just incredible. So we actually the subcommittee reached out to businesses of Petrolia, individual people to support, and we actually received about $1,800 to put on this event. So just a really resounding amount of support. That's just really inspirational for the committee to see. So, and then we also had volunteers to help usher as well. And then we reached out to Heidi's Independent, the Cottage, and M&M Meats to donate desserts. So we had platters of desserts after the show for guests to take for free, for complimentary. Then we also reached out to LCCVI High School, and they were able to put on an art show in the council chambers in conjunction with this event. So really showcasing various artistic abilities, both musical and artistic, which was really just amazing for the town to be able to come out and see. So the actual performance of the event, the layout, we had a stage manager, and she did a fantastic job just making sure everybody went on the stage in a timely manner. We only did a sound check an hour before, so not a lot of rehearsal time, but everybody that was performing has done this for years or had experience doing shows in a similar way. So that was great. And I just want to point out that it was really amazing for me. So there was a piano and flute duet, and they actually performed a song that was written by a youth in Oakville. He's a personal friend of mine. So that was just really amazing for people to see that this song that was performed so beautifully was actually written by a youth as well, just kind of reiterating the talent that youth really do have. So it was a fantastic event. The support was, again, overwhelming, both from the audience, but the business supporters as well. It was just really incredible. And the LCCVI Art Show, again, was just another fantastic touch to showcase the youth talent in Petrolia. So Petrolia really does have talent, I must say. So it was a great event. And again, many things we learned from this event, and we hope to continue to really encourage youth to hear their voice and to really be the change that they want to see in Petrolia. So yes, thank you.
Okay, before we go, I'll start, then I'll open it up to council. I know you need to be congratulated on all the work and something you've been involved in. I know you're a performer as well. I did attend the talent show, and as well as the participation with Councillor Hyatt and Councillor Patel, and it was great. I know there were some issues before, but I was really pleased with the outcome. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll open it up to council. Any questions from council or any comments? Deputy Mayor Field.
Yeah, through you. Thank you very much for the presentation. You know, we love hearing from Councillor Patel and Councillor Hyatt, but it means much more coming from a youth member, and especially for somebody that's the chair. So I do appreciate you guys, but this was a lot better. That was good. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other councillors? If not, thank you for coming to address council, and congratulations.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Next on the agenda was Adam Moore, and as the clerk mentioned before, that has been
That's
changed.
Mr. Dewhurst.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Dewhurst. Sorry, Mr. Dewhurst is going to be coming to our May 27th meeting. So we'll just move on. Now we'll get the presentation. Sorry, Adam. Mr. Moore from SEMA, if you'd like to come forward. Okay, I'll go and introduce him.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council and staff. My name is Stuart Winchester I'm with SEMA. We are proceeding with the design of the upgrade to the town's water intake out at the Brights Grove water treatment plant. As the mayor indicated, there is a short presentation that's included within your agenda. And I will have Mr. Moore go through that presentation for you. And then we will both be here available to answer any questions you may have. So the purpose of the presentation today is just to give you a brief update as to where we are with the design of the uptake or intake works. And hopefully, address where we are and let you know that we're moving forward and we should be moving forward well in time with our funding agreement.
Great, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, your worship, councilors, staff. Thank you for having us tonight. As Stuart said, we were just here to give a brief update on the project, where we're at in terms of the design, approvals, and the EA as well. Next slide, please. So just a brief overview of the agenda. I'm going to touch on the existing intake, the purpose of the project, and what we're working towards. The environmental assessment, which we're in the process of wrapping up now, and then take you through the three main aspects of the new design, the new intake itself, the existing low lift pump station, the new low lift pump station design, pre-treatment system, and that'll comprise the overall design for Brights Grove. And then I'll walk you through where we're at with the permits, approvals, cost estimate, and schedule. So the existing intake, I'm sure you're all very familiar with the system. It extends approximately 365 meters into Lake Huron, right on the shore of Brights Grove, within the city of Sarnia. It is a 400 millimeter cast iron intake pipe, originally constructed in 1944. I'll show some images here in the next slide, but it is past the limitation of its existing service life, and they're seeing currently some capacity limitations with the system. Next slide, please. And this is just kind of a brief overview of some of the challenges they've had over the recent years. A condition assessment conducted a few years back noticed approximately a 1 meter crack in the intake pipe. And the intake does have lingering issues with zebra mussel infestation, which have been mitigated in past years, but it is causing issues with cavitation on the downstream low lift pump station. So this is the bulk of the focus of the design project with the context of the intake replacement. The environmental assessment, this was triggered as a result of the intake replacement itself. So we are in the process of just handling some comments from the various ministries involved. We have issued our notice of completion for the environmental assessment. The enabling studies have been complete. Just have a couple outstanding comments from the ministries to handle, and then to satisfy our consultation requirements as well. So the proposed intake, as a result of the environmental assessment process, we explored many options for both the length of the intake, the size, and we did rest on a new intake approximately 400 meters extending from the shoreline, and this will run parallel to the existing intake. The materials that we're looking at, concrete pressure pipe, HTP, are a couple of the options we're looking at for the new intake, and it'll be serviced as well from a onshore low lift pump station. This is just a brief overview of where we're at with the detailed engineering right now. So we're in the process of laying out the trajectory of the new intake and then how it will be bridged into the new low lift pump station onshore. As a result of the new intake coming into the water treatment site at Brights Grove, we will have to do a road reconstruction effort as a part of laying the new intake at the site. So we will have detour detour routes set up during construction. This is kind of just an overview of where we'll be making the roadway crossing at Old Lakeshore Road, and then just subsequently having detours set up at Waterworks Road, Bright Street, through the other side of Old Lakeshore Road. Just a brief overview of the intake screen. This is a design aspect of the intake to protect against larger debris that gets into the water treatment system. So this is the first line of defense, if you will, of the new treatment system and the intake itself. So we've had provision for a dual intake system. Currently, the existing intake only has a single screen. And then we'll be using a very similar crib structure as the existing intake system. So this crib structure will protect the screens against other debris inside the lake itself and protect against frazzle ice buildup as well. So this is just a conceptual overview of that. Intake constructability considerations. We've engaged one marine contractor just to look at the aspects of building the new intake. This is just an example of the assembly of an HDPE intake pipeline. So a lot of the constructability considerations shown here for the new intake are going to be considered for our facility at Brights Cove as well. The proposed low lifts pump station. So this is a below grade concrete submersible pump station. This will be located within the water treatment plant site. And so this will service incoming water from the intake and then pump that through our new pretreatment system ultimately into the water treatment plant. And this will be designed for the ultimate capacity up to 22 MLD.
I'd just like to interject here just for a moment. The reason why we're building or proposing to build a new low lift pump station is to be able to keep the existing low lift pump station and the water treatment plant in service while we're building this, so that there's no impact to service to the residents in Petrolia during construction.
Great.
This is just a conceptual overview of the pretreatment system that we've ultimately arrived at to support the functionality of the water treatment plant. Currently, the system is plagued by frequent backwashes from the membrane filtration system. So we wanted to put in a cost-effective removal system upstream of the membrane system to give the membranes better removal capacity, and then ultimately return the water treatment system overall to its original capacity. So this will be installed within the water treatment plant building downstream of the low lift pump station. So permits and approvals, we have a number of them. We've engaged all the agencies here, Ministry of Natural Resources, Transport Canada, the MECP, with the Drinking Water Works permit, the local conservation authority, St. Clair Regional Conservation Authority, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, DFO, and then City of Sarnia with site plan approval process. So all of these agencies have been engaged. We're in the conversation with them to get approvals underway, and so we're moving detailed design and wrapping up the ECA or the EEA rather in parallel. Just a brief overview on cost estimate. So this is the overall cost for the intake replacement portion and the new low lift pump station pretreatment system, and ultimately the total capital cost. So project schedule, we're looking to wrap up the design and the EA and then have permits and approvals in place by the fall this year, and we expect to tender both projects near the end of 2024.
Well, thank you, Mr. Winchester and Mr. Moore. Before I open it up to council, I want to thank you for this presentation, because I know it was a big project and I've talked about this for years, but it's really nice to see all the work involved with this and at least where we're at. But congratulations. I want to keep this thing going, and I appreciate you updating council. I'll open it up to council. Any questions from any council? Councillor Welsh.
you, infrastructure nerd here, what do you consider when you are deciding whether to use the concrete pressure pipe or the HDPE pipe?
Well, there's a couple of considerations, and the ultimate selection, it may end up being a combination of different pipe materials, depending on where within the pipeline we're speaking. In the in-water portion, most likely is going to be proceeding as polyethylene pipe, purely for a constructability consideration. Be able to stage it all, we'd be able to float the pipe out into location and then put ballast on the pipe and then sink it in place. We're certain that we've got it in the right location. If we're to use concrete pressure pipe or a ductile iron pipe, similar to what the existing intake is, you're then asking divers to be jointing pipe underwater in place, and that's a very challenging construction exercise and most likely a very expensive construction exercise. I'm a little concerned about using polyethylene pipe underneath Old Lakeshore Road on the onshore portion, just due to the depth of the burial of that pipeline. So I'm likely to alter the pipe material for the onshore portion. I will either use concrete pressure pipe or, as I indicated, ductile iron pipe.
Thank you.
Okay,
Question?
Yes.
thank you. Any other question from Councillor? Councillor Hyatt, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, just a couple questions here. Are the intake screen and the sand separators based on like proven design and technology, or is it going to be a new concept that we're looking at implementing?
I'll speak to the first one. Yeah. The intake screens that is proven technology that, you do have an existing intake screen on your existing intake right now. What we're looking at doing is using a dual intake screen. So the diameter is a little smaller. So we provide more cover over the top of the intake screen to your low lake level elevation. There is a ministry guideline that recommends that we maintain a minimum of 3 meters cover over that screen.
Talk to that mic. I
Yeah.
think she's trying to get your attention.
I'm sorry.
For those gonna watch. the
Our
recording,
meetings are recorded, so.
My apologies to him. Should I repeat? So the ministry guideline calls for a 3 meter cover over top of the screen to the historical low lake level. So we're trying to go with a smaller screen, but to increase the intake capacity. And that's why we're ending up with a dual screen. Okay, I'll leave it to Adam on the sand separators.
And your question on the pretreatment system of sand separators, that is a proven technology on raw water applications, specifically here targeting high turbidity, so high suspended solids as a result of the raw water from Lake Huron. So they have been used on raw water for lake applications as well as groundwater applications, which you typically see high turbidity applications.
Okay, Councillor Hyatt, go ahead.
Well, the waste that comes out of the sand filters, can it go directly back to the lake, or does it have to be handled in other means?
Yes, so there's the sand debris from the pretreatment system that'll be handled on site at the existing solids handling storage tank.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Sorry, Councillor Hyatt, one more. Go ahead.
One last question. So you talked about the low lift station, the new station to support having the old station. Could we theoretically use laws to back supply water so that we didn't have to build a new low lift pumping station for the intake project and save that cost, or would that not be feasible?
From an economic perspective, I don't think that's a feasible solution. We have, under some emergency situations, negotiated for temporary supply from laws, and the costs have become very prohibitive. There are also some capacity limitations at the interconnection that's near your endowment reservoir today. I think it's only a 6-inch pipe that is connected to the Petrolia system.
It's okay. Great. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing? Councillor O'Hara.
Do you remove the old intake when this is all done?
We will not be removing it. We will be abandoning it in place. Sarnia has requested that we grout the entire pipeline that's underneath their road allowance. So we will go out to the intake screen, remove the screens, remove the crib. We'll probably put a plug in the end of the pipe there and then grout the pipe underneath the road.
Okay, Councillor Hare, okay. Anyone else? Again, gentlemen, thank you for coming to address council. It's a big job, but it's really important to this community to have that out there for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, moving on. I just see next on our list, we had a presentation from Mrs. Janice McMichaels Dennis from Blue Water Power. I don't see her here, so I think we'll just continue on. There is a motion before you. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor O'Hara. And I'm going to ask the clerk, I know it's quite long, but I will ask her to read that motion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just a note, we do have several motions to go through this evening.
Okay,
So the first one is that be it resolved that the financial statements of the corporation are hereby accepted, which financial statements are comprised of the financial position as at the December 31st, 2023, and the statements for the year end December 31st, 2023, related to the comprehensive income changes in equity, cash flows, and notes to the financial statement therein. And therefore be it resolved that all acts, intentions, and undertakings of the board of the officers of the corporation, including the declaration of dividends evidenced from the financial statements set out above, are confirmed and approved.
any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? We'll go to the next one. I'll ask, do we need another mover and seconder for that? Or do you-
However you wish, Your Worship.
I think we'll deal with them separately then. I'll ask for another move and a second. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Patel. I'll ask the clerk to read the next one, please.
And be it resolved that KPMG LLP Chartered Accountants be appointed as auditors to the subsidiaries of the corporation until the next annual meeting of shareholders or until a successor is appointed, but the shareholder waives the requirement for an audit of the corporation. The audit shall be performed on a consolidated basis, and the shareholders waive the requirement for an audit of the corporation on a non-consolidated basis.
Any questions from council? Again, we do this every year. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. And we'll go on to the next one. I'll ask for another mover and a seconder to deal with it. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Deputy Mayor Field. I'll ask the clerk to read that, please.
And that is that be it resolved that R. Brad Loosely and Rick Charlebois are elected to the directors of the corporation to hold office until the next annual meeting of the corporation or until his or her successor has been duly elected or appointed, subject to the provisions of the corporation's bylaws. And be it resolved that Brad Goodhill is elected as director for the affiliates to the corporation, namely Blue Water Power Corporation, Blue Water Power Distribution Corporation, Blue Water Power Services Corporation, Blue Water Power Renewable Energy Incorporated, Tech Power Services Incorporated, and Blue Water Regional Networks Incorporated to hold office until the next annual meeting or until his or her successor has been duly elected or appointed, subject to the provisions of the bylaws. Further, the directors of the corporation are authorized to execute such further documentation as may be required to further this resolution.
Any questions from council? My only comment is that I'll mention they spelt loosely wrong, but other than that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. We'll go on to the next one. Need a mover and a seconder. By Councillor Hyatt, seconded by Councillor Welsh. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
Be it resolved that the financial statements of the corporation are hereby accepted, which financial statements are comprised of the financial position as at December 31st, 2023, and the statements for the year ended December 31st, 2023, related to the comprehensive income, changes in equity, cash flows, and the notes to financial statements therein. And be it resolved that all acts, intentions, and undertakings of the board and of the officers of the corporation, including the declaration of dividends evidenced in the financial statements set out above, are confirmed and approved.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. And we go on to the next one. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor O'Hara. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And be it resolved that KPMG LLP Chartered Accountants be appointed as auditors to the corporation until the next annual meeting of shareholders or until a successor is appointed. The audit shall be performed in a consolidated basis, and the shareholders waive the requirement for an audit of the corporation on a non-consolidated basis.
Any discussion? Again, all those in favor, opposed, that motion carries. And the last one, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Patel, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. I'll ask the mayor, or sorry, the clerk to read that, please.
Be it resolved that Gary McDonald, Margaret Dragon, and Brad Goodhill are elected as directors of the corporation to hold office until the next annual meeting of the corporation or until his or her successor has been duly elected or appointed, subject to the provisions of the corporation's bylaws.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. And again, as a reminder, we go through this every year. We'll move on to number 13, which is the community announcements. You have a motion before you. I'll ask for a move and a second to put that on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to receive as information only the May 13th, 2024 community announcements as presented.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Mrs. Ellsworth, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I do, your worship.
Go
I
ahead.
overlooked my own department. So I would like to advise all of you that Oil Rush runs until May 26th. And it's amazing. I saw it on Saturday, so I encourage you to get a ticket. It tells a good story of Petrolia.
Thank you, Mrs. Ellsworth. And two, I also want to encourage, if you haven't seen it, I've got my tickets, but please come out and see it. Thank you. All those in favor of that motion? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll move us on to the recognition and check presentation from the Petroleum Wellness Advisory Committee. And I'd like to ask Maria Masudira, is she there? Please come forward. And I'd like to ask Councillor Clark and Councillor Patel to go down, please, to present the check on behalf of the town. Go in front. Yeah.
Aw, I love it.
Perfect.
Oops.
Now, Maria, would you like to say a few words? Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors and staff. Since 2009, St. Joseph's Hospice of Sarnia-Lambton has been a beacon of hope, providing free end-of-life care to over 2,341 residents. Our operations costs rely on the generosity of our donors, just like you. With 57% of our operating costs coming from donations, it is essential to note that while the Ministry of Health provides funding for a portion of our nursing costs, including our RNs, RPNs, and PSWs, we are required to fundraise for the remainder of the operating costs. This includes essentials such as food for our residents, utilities, supplies, maintenance, just to name a few. Despite our significant impact, St. Joseph's Hospice faces a critical financial challenges. Unlike hospitals, we must continue to fundraise to cover essential services. Annually, we are required to raise over $2.4 million to sustain operations, including nursing wages, grief and bereavement services, and facilities maintenance. Our services include our 10-bed residence, operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, our grief and support programs, our spiritual care programs, our home visiting programs, our adult grief bereavement sessions, and our children's grief programs for children's ages 6 to 17. We are supported by more than 290 volunteers who contribute over 14,000 hours last year alone. Additionally, we collaborate closely with the palliative care clinic, receiving referrals from hospital and communities. St. Joseph's Hospice plays a critical role in our local healthcare system. We lower the healthcare cost compared to hospice. We provide compassionate end of care, and we offer bereavement support to families. The Town of Petrolia has generously supported us since 2013, gifting over $40,000. Your support is invaluable in ensuring the continuation of St. Joseph's Hospice services in our community. Let's work together to safeguard compassionate palliative care for our loved ones at a time of need. This December, we will be celebrating 15th anniversary of our residence. I'm proud to say that we're here for the community of Sarnia-Lambton. Thank you for presenting us this evening a check for $3,000, which will go towards our $2.4 million this year. I invite everyone here to come for a private tour of hospice, both our residence and our resource center. This will provide a firsthand understanding of our work and the impact of our support. So if you're driving by the Sarnia Police Station, don't go by the Victorian home without coming in to see the facility. And I say to a lot of presentations out there, if you ever watch Dragon's Den, they always want to get into the companies because they want that 51%. If St. Joseph's Hospice relies on donations to raise 57% of what we do, this is not my hospice. This is your hospice. And I thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I open up to council. I have been through your operation and you should be congratulated. I mean, it's a wonderful thing that you're doing for people and family of this county. Council or Deputy Mayor Field, go ahead.
I try to keep my composure.
Okay.
I recently had the privilege of attending the hospice with my father-in-law. I talked to a former colleague that works there now. I said I had some family members that wanted a tour. Thank you. You stopped doing everything and you gave a tour to our family. I was able to tour the facility. The first year we made a donation on behalf of the town. I went through it and I thought I was a big, strong guy until I walked through that place and had the presentation. And I thought, well, I've already seen this, so I'm not going to have an emotional effect. But what you do for the families, what you do for the residents that are in there is unbelievable. And I can't speak enough about the hospice. What you're doing is you're giving the respect back to those residents, and you just treat everyone so well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Field. Any other councillors have any comments? If not, Mrs. Musadira, I hope I said that right or close.
Pretty close.
Pretty close.
Take that.
Thank you for coming to
You're
address
welcome.
council, and
Thank
thank you
you.
for what you do.
Thank you for your support, and I hope you all stop in to see it. It's always changing. We're doing renovations now because we've been in existence for 15 years, so we need some upgrades. I will just highlight one of our most recent upgrades is new beds. So our beds were 15 years old, and so we have now purchased 10 new beds. They're called Cuddle beds. They are made in Canada. There's not too many places that have them. They actually expand. The sides come out and the mattresses blow up bigger so two people can get into bed. Each bed cost $29,700, and we were able to go to our community and we raised the $300,000 that we needed. And so I thank everyone in this community of the County of Lambton for everything that you do. So I hope to see you all soon, just for coffee.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, council takes us now to the first opportunity for the public to address council. I'll ask, is there anyone here wishing to address council at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 15. Under administration, we have a report from Mrs. Mandy Pearson, Clerk Operations Clerk, regarding the OPP Additional Enhancement Officers Agreement extension. You have a motion before you. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put this on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. I will ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to adopt the report of the Clerk Operations Clerk dated May 13th, 2024 regarding the provision of additional services under the Community Safety and Policing Act, and that bylaw number 25 of 2024 authorizing the execution of an agreement for the provision of additional police services be approved.
Any questions from council? Councillor Welch.
Clarify that a little bit.
You know what? I was just going to ask you to do that.
Okay.
I'll ask Mrs. Pearson. Go ahead.
We've always had this. This is for our secondary staff sergeant at the detachment. The original agreement was under the Police Services Act. April 1st, that was a defunct act. So all agreements under Police Services Act are also defunct. So we will see more of this as we have to re-engage for the same services, but under the CSPA.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. That also takes us now to, I've got a report from Mrs. Mandy Pearson, Clerk Operations Clerk, regarding the CEE Auxiliary Tag Day request. You have a motion before you. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to approve the request made by the CEE Hospital Auxiliary to hold their annual Tag Day on May 17th, 2024.
And this is an annual event. Any questions from council? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll take us on to, we have a report from Mr. Rick Charlebois, CAO Treasurer, and regarding the term debt analysis. And I'll ask for a motion to put that on the floor for discussion, please. Moved by Councillor Patel, seconded by Deputy Mayor Field. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to receive and file the report of the CAO Treasurer dated the 13th of May, 2024 regarding long-term debt analysis as at the end of 2023.
Any questions from council? I'll ask Mr. Charlebois, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just that our debt situation is getting better and better every year. We try not to borrow going forward unless we absolutely have to. For example, if it was dependent on a grant, which is some of our big debts that happened, and hopefully council has seen this report several times, and hopefully it's easy to understand.
Thank you, Mr. Charlebois. And I also want to mention, yes, I do appreciate the way you lay that out so we can understand it. I think it shows this town is in great financial shape. And special thanks to you, Mr. Charlebois, for keeping that long-term debt. From when I started, it was over $9 million, and now we're down to a point, and that is way below our debt capacity. If we ever need to borrow, we could. Any other discussion from council? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. We also have a report from Mr. Rick Charlebois, CAO Treasurer, regarding the Blue Water Power 2023 dividends. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put the motion before you on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Patel, seconded by Councillor Clark. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to receive and file the report of the CAO Treasurer dated the 13th of May, 2024 regarding the 2023 Blue Water Power dividends and interest revenue.
All right, any discussion from council? This has been good news. Every year we've obtained more money. And I want to go back to years ago when I think Councillor Ross O'Hara was mayor, when this was put in place, this agreement to get involved with Blue Water Power, which was one of the best things this town has done. So thank you for that, Councillor O'Hara. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. We'll move on to C. We have a report from Chief Rick Cousins, Director of Public Services, regarding the fire tanker apparatus. There's a motion before you. I'll ask for a move and a second to put that on the floor for discussion. Moved by Deputy Mayor Field, seconded by Councillor Hyatt. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to receive the report of the Director of Public Safety Fire Chief dated May 13th, 2024 regarding the replacement of the PNEFD fire tanker apparatus, and that the Council of the Town of Petrolia authorize the purchase of the Fort Garry fire truck tanker at $658,525 plus HST, and that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to sign the purchase agreement with Fort Garry Trucks on behalf of the Corporation of the Town of Petrolia.
Any questions from council? Deputy Mayor Field, go ahead.
Just a couple comments through you. I want to thank the fire committee and thank the chief and thank the joint committee, our representatives. And I appreciate it being on our agenda after Enniskillen received it. This is sort of maybe the way we should be doing things, unfortunately. But I think it's good that we're moving forward, and thank you for your work on this.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Field, and I certainly agree with all of that. I think it's still good news that we are finally moving ahead. I want to thank the chief as well for your involvement. And before I call the vote, I will ask Chief Cousins, do you have anything you'd like to add? You'll speak up too if you don't. Okay.
Yes, through you, just wanted to thank the committee and to just say that it is exactly what we need. That tanker truck is exactly. It's great to see that the two councils working together, or the Enniskillen Council, members that are on the joint committee, and members of council here that are on. Everybody worked very well. I'm glad it's finally done. So but it is exactly what we need. It's gonna last for 25 years. So.
Thank you, Chief Cousins. And yeah, I'm glad it's come to an end as well. All right, I think any other discussion from council? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Parks and Recreations, we have a report from Mrs. Julie Bullock, Director of Parks and Recreation Facilities, regarding the road closure for Pizza Fest. You have a motion before you. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Patel. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to adopt the report of the Director of Parks, Recreation and Facilities dated the 13th of May, 2024 regarding tender results for the construction of the Washroom Pavilion at our Petrolia YMCA. And that.
Oh, no.
Almost.
Pizza
Pizza
Fest. Pizza Fest.
Now it's my turn to jump ahead.
Okay, we'll just start. No, that's okay. We'll start that again.
So that was Councillor Clark and Councillor Patel.
Patel, yes.
Thank you. And that is for the Council of the Town of Petrolia to endorse the report of the Director of Parks, Recreation and Facilities dated May 13th, 2024 regarding the additional road closure for Pizza Fest, and that Greenfield Street from Petrolia line to the north of the VPP parking lot entrance be approved for closure, and that public notification be issued.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. Any questions from council? That's always a fun event, and hopefully we'll have lots of pizza to eat. Deputy Mayor Field, go ahead.
On that note, yeah, no, I think it's exciting. Our Pizza Fest is always growing, and having to close another road is good. So we get one of those pizza comas, we just wander out into the street. We don't have to worry about traffic now. So good.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Field. Anything else from council? Mrs. Bullock, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Not this time.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving that motion? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll move us on to a report from Mrs. Bullock again regarding the Phase 2 Washroom Pavilion Tender Award. And you've got a motion before you. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Clark. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
Let's try this again.
Yeah.
That the council of the town of Petrolia adopt the report of the Director of Parks, Recreation and Facilities dated the 13th of May, 2024 regarding tender results for the construction of the washroom pavilion at our Petrolia YMCA. And that staff utilized $4,751.20 plus HST from our Petrolia YMCA reserve to help fund that project, and that the Agri-Urban be awarded the contract in the amount of $1,128,214.20 plus HST.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. And before I open this up, I just want you to be aware again, it was our low bid. And this is more than just washrooms. There's more work involved that you need to be aware of. But I'll ask council, any questions regarding that? Mrs. Bullock, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Not at this time, Your Worship.
Okay. And I just want to, Mr. Charlebois, do you have anything you'd like to add to that? Other than the additional money we're putting in that from our reserve?
Yes, just through you, Your Worship, just to say that this is going to be great once we're all done this. Should hopefully all the work will be done by the fall. Don't quote me on that, though.
Oh, well, that's great. It's certainly going to be a very busy place with the Y and all the different activity. All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of that motion? Opposed? That motion carries. That'll move us on again to a report from Mrs. Bullock regarding the LCDS downtown sidewalk cleaning. You have a motion before you. I'll ask for a move and a second to put that on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Patel. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the council of the town of Petrolia to adopt the report of the Director of Parks, Recreation and Facilities dated May 13th, 2024 regarding the LCDS downtown sidewalk cleaning, and that the council of the town of Petrolia direct the staff to proceed with the service agreement with Lambton County Developmental Services for the cleaning of sidewalks in the downtown core from June 17th, 2024 to August 30th, 2024.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. And this is something we've done year after year. Any questions from council? Councillor Welsh.
Just, is there some reason we don't continue that into September a little bit?
Mrs. Bullock, could you speak to that?
Through you, Your Worship, I think it's just always been that we've done this time frame. I think it works out well for LCDS. But I could certainly reach out to them to see if that were an option.
Well, because the theater goes beyond that, and that's where a bulk of our visitors come from, especially this year. We're going to have an influx of people. We have the Harvest Fest dinner and other events, a lot more events typically than we normally would in the fall, I think.
Why don't, to Mrs. Bullock, you speak to them and see if, first of all, if it's possible, if they can do that and maybe get back to council.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good, thank you. Any other questions from council? I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving that motion? Opposed? That motion carries. And we have a report again from Mrs. Bullock, Director of Parks, Recreation Facilities, regarding the mobile concession vehicle services Bridgeview Park tender results. And you have a motion also before you. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor O'Hara, seconded by Councillor Patel. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion, please.
And that is for the council of the town of Petrolia to adopt the report of the Director of Parks, Recreation and Facilities dated the 13th of May, 2024 regarding mobile concession vehicle services, Bridgeview Park, and that the council of the town of Petrolia approve the bylaw agreement presented before them tonight for the operation of a mobile concession vehicle at Bridgeview Park.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. Any questions from council? Councillor Patel, go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship. Just a note of conversation that I remember sitting here a year ago, and we talked about this, and I really had great hopes that there would be more people that reached out to, nothing against what we have. It's certainly great food, but I really thought that the response to have an opportunity to have a truck here would be more plentiful than it was.
It seems odd we only had one bid. You're right.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, I want to mention to council, I'm very pleased that Chris is back because of what he does. And he also donates a lot back to the community, which is really quite nice. Any other questions from council? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. And we'll move on to This comes to the closed session. We don't have anything. This is the second opportunity for anyone wishing to address council. Seeing none, we'll come to new unfinished business. We have one tabled item. I certainly will recommend that council consider leaving that table to our next meeting. Okay, that'll move us on then to the bylaws. I'll ask for a motion to have the bylaws read a first and second time. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Deputy Mayor Field. We won't read it until the third time. All those in favor of the two readings, that motion carries. And I'll ask for a motion to have the bylaws read a third time, signed, sealed, and numbered. Moved by.
Can we discuss the bylaws or do we have to?
I'll get a motion on the floor, then you can discuss them. Yes. Any one of them.
To discuss the first one, 2024.
All right, let's get a motion on the floor to read him a third time. Moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Deputy Mayor Field. So before we read it, go ahead, Councillor Hyatt.
Just the first one, 2024, in the schedule agreement, it says that the town of Petrolia will be responsible for all costs related to maintaining the emergency shelter. If it's being lent out to another municipality, I don't think the town of Petrolia should be responsible for the costs of the emergency shelter.
Okay, I'm going to ask Mrs. Pearson to speak to that, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I will rely on our Chief Cousins. If there's a tidbit that I have misunderstood, he'll give me a nod. That is our agreement. The agreement was structured by the County of Lambton, presented to us. So it is their agreement, vetted through their legal, which is also their clerk's department. For that caveat section, we will be building into our fee schedule for the town of Petrolia that should that process take place, that municipality will be invoiced for exactly those services.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
Councillor Hyatt. Okay, thank you. All right. We do have a motion on the floor. I'm going to ask the clerk to read the bylaws and then I'll open it up for any other discussion.
So
Mrs. Pearson, go
that is
ahead.
that bylaw number 20 of 2024, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the Town of Petrolia to authorize the execution of an agreement between the Corporation of the County of Lambton and the Corporation of the Town of Petrolia for acceptance of an emergency services shelter be read a third time and finally passed. Sorry, everyone. You need just a second there.
Take your time.
That bylaw number 21 of 2024, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the Town of Petrolia to amend bylaw 63 of 2017, the comprehensive zoning bylaw for Petrolia Sky Estates, BDM developments, be read a third time and finally passed. That bylaw number 22 of 2024, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the Town of Petrolia to amend bylaw 46 of 2022, being a bylaw to provide for the rules governing the proceedings of council and committees and the conduct of its members, be read a third time and finally passed. That bylaw number 23 of 2024, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the Town of Petrolia to set the 2024 tax ratios and to provide for a final tax levy for the year 2024, the payment of such taxes and for penalty of interest at 1.25%, be read a third time and finally passed. That bylaw number 24 of 2024, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the Town of Petrolia to authorize the execution of an agreement between Mr. Christopher Tripp and the Corporation of the Town of Petrolia for the operation of a mobile concession vehicle at Bridgeview Park, be read a third time and finally passed. That bylaw number 25 of 2024, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the Town of Petrolia to authorize the execution of an agreement between the Corporation of the Ontario Provincial Police and the Corporation of the Town of Petrolia for provision of additional police services under the Community Safety and Policing Act, be read a third time and finally passed. That bylaw number 26 of 2024, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the Town of Petrolia to confirm the resolutions and motions of the Council of the Town of Petrolia, which were adopted up to and including May 13th, 2024, be read a third time and finally passed. And that bylaw number 27 of 2024, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the Town of Petrolia to appoint members of Town Council and Town ratepayers to various Town of Petrolia committees and responsibilities, be read a third time and finally passed.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. Well done. Any questions from council regarding those bylaws? Okay, if not, oh, sorry, Councillor Hyatt, go ahead.
I have a question on 2024, which is the zoning, rezoning bylaw. So in the public open house, we heard about water water in the backyards. She mentioned a report, which was a drainage report, which was actually a really interesting report to read. When the new development goes in, the stormwater is going to go to a different location than what's happening on First Ave currently.
Through your worship, yeah,
Yeah.
that is, that is the proposed. Once we see the draft plan, all that will be taken in considerations at that time.
Okay.
The water will be, you're right, it'll be considered with the draft plan regarding the water.
Yeah, just in that master report, it said that that section of First Ave was already at capacity, so.
Yes, that's what
just-
we understand.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
sorry. Any other questions from council? If not, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving those bylaws? Opposed, that motion carries. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn until May the 27th, moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Deputy Mayor Field. I'll ask the clerk to read that motion.
That the May 13th, 2024 meeting of the Council of the Town of Petrolia be adjourned to the next regular scheduled meeting of council to be held on Monday, May 27th, 2024, or to the call of the chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Pearson. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed, that motion carries. Thank you, everyone. I know it's been a busy night, but I think we accomplished a lot tonight. Thank you.
Annette?